Hi everyone, in this video we are going to build an event management API with Node.js and ExpressJs with TypeScript, and we are also going to use MongoDB for database, and we are using JWT for authentication as well. We have like a few routes which I can just show you in the Postman right now. As we can see now, these are the routes that we are going to build. So we can just get the events, create event, update and delete event as well. And we also have another model called users. So we can just register a user and they can log in, so the logged in users can only create, update, and delete the events. Get events is open for the public, so anyone can get the events, but other CRUD operations can done only via a logged in user. Okay, so let's just see the models now. So as we can see, for events, we have the name of the event, date, location, and the description, which is optional, created by, which will be automatically populated with the logged in user, and also attendees. So this is just an array of strings, so we can just add a set of emails inside it. So I just kept it simple, so if you want you can just change it and create as JSON in it or anything else you want. Yeah, and also for the user we just have a username, email and password. I think so we have a username like the first name or the last name, so we are just going to use email and password to log in. That's it. So for users, that's all we have been built, and the routes also the user can register themselves and they can log in. So once they log in, they will be provided a token, JWT token. With that token, they can just update, create, and delete the event. So get event is a public route, so we don't need to authenticate for this. We can see that there is an array of events. So we can see that it has an ID, name, date, location, and attendees as an empty. And we also have created by is automatically picked up with the user ID that we are authenticated to create the event. And if you see here, these things don't have created by because I have just updated the event to add that created by. So these are the data that I have entered before that. So right now it will be like this. So let's check on other routes as well. I'm using Postman for calling these APIs. Yeah, you can just install the Postman extension and you have to log into it. So you have to create an account for it, and then it will just sync up with your account. You can just do it inside the VS Code itself. So let's go into create event. So right now you can see that there is a body. Let me just do it side by side. Yeah. So we don't need the terminal below. So right now this path I have already authenticated it. So let me just remove it so that we can see if it works if the user is not authenticated. So yeah. So now I have removed my token from the request. So it is not authenticated right now. So if I send to create a request, it says access denied, no token has been provided. For registering a user, it's same as creating an event. You can just put in some username, email, and password, and you can just send it, and it will create a user. So for login, for login, we just have to enter in that email and password, and it will just create a token for us, and it will send it back. So what we have to do is we have to copy this, and so we are going to create an event, right? So in this, yeah, there will be an authorization. In this, we just have to select that bearer token, and you can just paste it inside this. And if we send it now, it will say that the event has been created, so it has returned that object. And one more thing is that this token is available only for like in 1 hour. So after that, it will expire. So if we use an expired token, it will tell us that the token has been invalid or anything like that. So let me just copy this token again. If we need to add attendees, we can just use the update event. So inside this, I'm just going to update the token. So for updating event, we just have to provide that particular JSON object, and then we just have to mention its ID here in the request, which we will get from the get events, like we can see it here. So I have not written any request to get a particular event right now. So I think we can just add it on the way. So in this demo, I will not add it. We will just add it while I'm recording as well. So same goes for the delete as well. So we just need to send in that particular ID within the route and add that particular token inside authorization. So one other thing is that you have to use the same user for it. So if I have like two users, I have created an event with the user A. I have to log in with the user A to do the particular operation. So if I create an user B, and then if I try to manipulate the event created by the user A, it will not work. So I have made it that way. So right now I'm just going to show you an example. So this is an expired, I think it's an expired thing. Yeah, even not found, so it's not expired. Yeah, so first let's start with setting things up. So we will just open up a terminal and we will create the required folders and file we need. So open up the terminal and go to the location where you want to create your app. So I'm just going to create a folder here. So mkdir, so which will be the command we'll be using to create the folder. Event management, I'm just going to say API. Okay, so I'm just going to cd into it. So from here we can just init a Node.js thing. So npm init -y. So it will just create our basic environment with the default values. Yeah, as we can see, it has created our package.json and all. So before opening it in VS Code, let's also import. Sorry. So before opening it in VS Code, let's also install our packages here itself. So npm I. First, I'm going to install bcrypt.js so that we can handle our passwords. .env to handle the environment variables. So it will we can just install multiple packages. We can just provide space between them, so we don't have to type it one by one like npm install bcrypt or like that. So you can also use npm I, or you can just type in the npm install fully. So everything will work. And we are going to use express and JSON web token for our authentication. So with that, we will also be using passport. I don't think we will be using passport. Yeah, let me just install it. Okay, so and we are going to use a library called Morgan, which we will be using for logging the purpose in the CLI. So we will be able to see in the command prompt whichever the requests have been accessed. So after Morgan, let's install Mongoose so that we can access our MongoDB. Yeah, so I think it will take a minute since there's a lot of packages here. I'll be back. Yeah, so now that the packages have been installed, we need to install few more dev dependencies like nodemon and also something's required for TypeScript also, right? So let's just install it. So npm I, so double hyphen save hyphen dev. So it will be coming under as dev dependencies. So here we are going to install nodemon so that we can just have a development server separately and TypeScript as well. So for TypeScript, we also need TS node. Yeah, so and we also need to install tabs for all our packages above as well. So a thread types slash bcrypt.js, a thread types slash, yeah, I'm just gonna copy this and we are going to use express a thread type slash mongoose and for mongo, sorry, not for mongo node, and also for our passport, and again for passport jwt hyphen jwt. Yeah, I think these are all the packages that we need, so I'm just going to install it. So we can just open it in VS Code using the command code and a dot for that current directory. Yeah, so we can see that we have our known modules and also package log.json and package.json. So we can see our dependencies and dev dependencies here. So these are the versions that I'm using right now, so which is the latest version as of this recording. Yeah, so first let's just add our gitignore file and init a directory, sorry, create a git repository so that I can share this GitHub code with you. So I think I forgot to say it before, so you can just get the code in the description below. Git ignore. So here we'll be having two folders under file. So node underscore modules and also dist, and along with it we will also have a env file. Yeah. So in order to init a Git repository, we can just say git init. So we have initialized the Git repository now. Now let's just create our env files. So .env. Let me just also create an .env.example. So we can just use it to create the environment variables if we clone it somewhere else. Yeah, so these are the three variables that we will need. So port, so which will be default by 5000. So and we will also create our MongoDB URI and we will have a JWT secret. So it's going to be same inside this .env as well. We will be opening our MongoDB Atlas and you can just create a project, and so we will go through it once we have completed this setup. So we'll just fill in that URI later. And for secret, if you're going to put it in a production server, you have to have a good secret. For now, I'm just going to keep it like ABC, something like this. Yeah. So that's it for our env files as well. So I'm just going to create the folder structure. So all the main code recording the API is going to be inside a source folder. So inside this, we will have our models. So models will be the type of data. So what all the items that our data should have. So like that. And we will also have our controllers. So with this, we will be manipulating with the data. And we're also going to need another folder for the routes so that we can build our API routes. And then we need a middleware, so we can just check if particular routers need to be authenticated or not, like that. I think we need one more folder called config. So inside this only we will be like connecting with the database. So we will create the files at the respective sections. For now, let's just create our server.ts. Yeah, so we haven't configured our ts yet. So let's open the terminal again, and we can use the command npx tsc init. So it will create our ts config file. Sorry, I think we need to use hyphen here. Yeah, so it's a flag that init. Yeah, so it has created a new file here. So you can just open it. Let me just zoom out once. Yeah, I'm just gonna close the terminal for now. So we can say it has given us all the options that are available in it. So what I'm gonna do is just remove all these commented parts, and we are just going to have the yeah. So here we are going to use ES of 2020, and common.js is fine. Let's add the out directory here. So out directory is going to be a disk folder which TypeScript will automatically create once it has converted our TypeScript code into a JS code, and we will use that as our server. Yeah, so we don't have to worry about this. TypeScript will do it automatically for us. And we also have to give our root directory, so which is going to be the directory which we are going to do our coding, so which is the server directory. So if you are not using a server directory and we are just having these files in the home page itself, you can just add in this dot alone. That's also will work. Apart from this, we need to include and exclude certain things. So the one thing we have to include is the source part. So here only we'll be using the TypeScript, right? So out of this, we won't be using TypeScript anywhere. And we need to exclude certain things, which is our node modules, node underscore modules. And we also need to add our scripts in the package.json. So right now there is only tests here. So we are going to have like two things. One is dev, which is going to be just nodemon. And the next thing is start, which is kind of like our production server. So here first we will use npx tsc. So it will just compile and transport in sense convert our ts code into js code, and it will put it inside our dist folder. And we have to use node for that. So node dist slash server.js. So the server will be started as well. Yeah, so these are the two commands that we have needed. So let's have a simple application for now. So import express, and we also need application here. So comma application from then quotes express. We also need .env. So .env from .env. So we also need to connect to DB routes, and we can just bring in our Morgan as well. So import Morgan from Morgan, and we can just use .env.config so that we will be able to access our envs. I thought we have imported it already. Yeah, so at types Morgan package.json. I think I forgot to install at types Morgan. So let's just also install that. Yeah. So let's create our Express app, const app, which will be of type application, and it's going to be an Express. And these are all going to be the middleware. So app.use, This is going to be express.json. So our body will be in JSON format, which is the standard thing to do. And Morgan, so Morgan is used to log in the requests that are received in the server. So there are a lot of formats here like combined, common, dev, short, tiny. So we're just going to use tiny. So you can just play around with other things as well. So to see how it will display, and you can just choose the one you like. And here we also need to connect to DB, which we will do in a minute. And we have to define our routes as well. Yeah, so let's get a port. Port will be from process.env dot port port. So if there is no port, we can just choose 5000 here. So if you want to modify it, you can just change it in the env. So it will be using that port. And let's start in our server app.listen port and an arrow function which console logs server running on port, and we will use our port variable here. Now that we have a basic server ready, let's try and run it. Npm run dev. So since there is nothing to do, I don't think there will be any error, and there is an error. Okay, cannot find the module index.js. Okay, so since we are using TypeScript and we have the code under the server, sorry, we have the code under the source directory, right? We have to create one more file. So we have to configure our nodemon as well. So for that, we have to create a nodemon JSON here. So nodemon.json. Yeah, so in this, we are going to tell nodemon to watch the particular folders alone, which is our source folder. And we have to say that we are using TS as well. And we have to ignore certain files if we want. I don't think we are going to add that, but we have to follow certain things for execution. So it has to use TS node and not the regular node. And we have to locate the server file. So dot source slash server.ts. So we will be getting our server file here as well. And we just need to run the server again. As we can see now, it is starting the server perfectly. Yeah, so there is an error here. So already in news Python. So let me just stop on the demo server and then it will work. As we can see, our server is running now, but we can't access this or anything since we don't have any routes or anything like that. Let me just also try it with the start. So we can just use npm run start, or you can just go with npm start. So it's running as well. Yeah, so we are good to go. So I'm just going to add it with the git. So git add all and git commit minus I'm just gonna say init initial setup. Yeah, so we can see the disk folder has been created. So it will just put in all the ts file and convert it into json, and those files will be inside this disk folder that will be used for the production. Yeah, so every time we update, it will just modify accordingly to this disk folder. So we don't need to add this in with our git. So that's why we have added it to our git ignore. So let's move on to the next part where we're going to create our MongoDB database and grab its URI. So I've logged in into my Atlas MongoDB. So you can just log in into your account. Or if you don't have one, create a new account and go to this projects page, and let's start with creating new project. So for event management, I already have a project, but I'm just going to create a new one. So I'm just going to name it event management API. Yeah, you can have any name you want here. So yeah, so you can just choose the project owner. So since I'm the only one in this account, yeah, you can just click create project. So your project will be created. So you can switch between projects by clicking here. So I am inside this event management API, and we need to create our cluster. Yeah, so for cluster, select M0, which is the free one. And I'm just going to leave the default name. If you want, you can just change here. And make sure to choose the region closest to yours. And yeah, we don't need to change anything. Just click on create deployment. And it will take a few minutes to create the cluster. Yeah, as you can see, it is asking for the username and the password for the database. So it will automatically create one for us. Make sure you're copying this. So make sure you copy this username and password and paste somewhere else so that we can just add it inside our env file with a MongoDB string. So I'm just going to click on create database user, and we have to choose a connection method, but our cluster is not has been created yet, so we can't access this right now. So I'm just going to click close. Yeah, so the one other thing is that if you forgot that username and password, you can go to this database access. Inside the project, you can go to database access, and you can find your username, and you can't find your password here, but you can just edit and add the new password, or you can just create a new database user if you need. Yeah, and there is also network access for this. So right now the current IP that my system is in is has been added automatically. But if you want to provide it like a global access, like if you're hosting your API in a server, you have to add that API. Or if you want, right now for development, you can just add like 0.0.0.0, which will add like allow all the access from anywhere. And you can also put an expire time. So I'm just going to use 6 hours and confirm. So since your IP address will be added, if you are going to do the operation right now itself, you don't have to add the 0 and 0. So in some case your DB is not been working if you already have the cluster ready. So make sure to add this so that you can just access it. So once the cluster has been created, click on the connect and go to drivers, and we just need to copy the string. So make sure you're copying the string, and let's go to our VS Code. Inside our .env file in MongoDB URI, let's just paste it in. Yeah, as we can see, so I'll just paste the URI directly here. One thing you have to do is make sure this is supposed to be a username and this is supposed to be the password. So username they will be provided automatically, but we have to paste the password here. Yeah, so make sure you are removing this arrow bracket as well and paste in your password. So now our MongoDB is correct and we can just connect with the database and work with it. So inside the source folder, inside config, let's create our file db.ts. In this, let's just import mongoose, anything. So const connectDB will be equal to an async function, async, so which is going to return a promise of void. So it's not going to return anything. So inside the bracket we will write in our code. So before that, let's just go with export default connectDB. Yeah, here let's add our try catch blog. So this error, so if we catch an error, we just need to console log it, right? So console.log MongoDB connection failed, and then we can just log in that error, and we need to shut down the server or shut down that particular process. So for that, we are going to use the process.exit so that we will be exiting out of this particular function. So the one should be inside the parenthesis. So in try, what we are going to do is await mongoose.connect, and we just need to call in that variable, which is process.env.mongodb URI mongodb underscore URI, and then we can just console log that MongoDB has been connected successfully. MongoDB connected successfully. Yeah, so we can see in error it's saying that it can be undefined since we may forgot to add it in the environment variable, right? So let's just add an if condition that's saying that if it is not there, what we are going to do is we will be console logging that we need db URI is missing, and then we will exit the process. Yeah, I'm just going to copy it from here. Yeah, now we can see that our error has been gone. So we just need to add it with the server.ts here. So here I'm just going to call connectDB. Yeah, make sure it has been imported correctly. And if I run npm run dev, so it's saying that db URL is missing. So in db.ts, oh, it should be URI, not URL. So I have just misnamed it. Yeah, we can see that our server has been running and the connection has been made successfully. Yeah, so next let's start with our model. So just we can just define what our data should be. So I'm just gonna change high here as well. Yeah, so in our models directory, I'm just gonna create a new file with user.ts. So in this we'll be defining what our user should have. So import Mongoose from Mongoose. Yeah, we also need to import document and schema. So we will just import it as we go. So let's have our users interface here. Just going to be export interface. So hi user, it should extend document from Mongoose itself. Yeah, document from Mongoose. So as we can see, it has been imported here. So we will have a username, which is kind of like the name. I think you can just add whatever you want here. But yeah, right now in this we are not going to use this username that much. So I am planning to create do another video with like the UI with the Next.js as well. So I think we can just use that over there. Right now we don't need it actually. So email will be a string and password will also be a string. So yeah, now let's define our schema. So const user schema will be of type schema from Mongoose, which will be a new schema, and within curly braces let's add in our username, which is going to be a type of string. So here the string should be with a capital S, and let's make it required with true. Yeah, so which is going to be same for our email and password as well. So password, yeah. So one thing we have to do is make sure that the emails are unique. So unique should be true so that we can't have two emails at the same time. Yeah, so we just need to export this. So export default mongoose.model, and the type is IE user with the US capital as well. And let's add in our user and the user schema. Yeah, that's it for our user. Let me just minimize it. Yeah. So I'm just going to copy the same thing and we are going to add in for our event as well. So inside that models folder, let's create another file for event.ts. So I'm just going to paste the same thing here and we're just going to rename it with event.schema. Sorry, event schema. So make sure you are changing here as well, and I'm just going to change here to event, but we are going to change the interface as well. So it's going to be the name and we will have a date which will be of type date with a capital D. And we will also have location, which will be of string. And we will have a description for the event, description, which will be optional. And we will have an attendees as well. Sorry, attendees, which will be a string array. So we can also add in a JSON object here with a set of users with their name, email, contact number, or anything like that as well. For now, let's just keep things simple and let's have a string array. So we can just enter in the email of every attendee and created by. Yeah, so created by is going to be of type mongoose dot types. So we are going to use the ID of the user, right? So we are going to get the type from the object ID from Mongoose. So the same thing, we just need to add it here as well. So name, I'm just gonna copy this and date. So here also type should be date. Location. So the location doesn't have to be unique, and we can say we need our description. I'm just gonna use this password here. Description. Yeah, the one thing is that the description is not required, right? So we can just remove that and we can just add in our attendees, which is going to be of type array of string. So within square bracket, we can just enter string and we can say default should be an empty string created by. So let me just stop in the server. I think it's slowing my system down. So this attendee is going to be a type of. So we just need to copy the same thing for that object ID. So mongoose.schema.types dot object ID, and we are going to refer it with our user. So which is a user model we have just created right now, and which is also going to be required. So we just have to have the required as true. Yeah, I think we are done with our event schema as well. Yeah, so let's move on to the next thing, which is going to be the controllers. So let me just close this terminal and close all the files. Next, we are going to create our controllers, right? So for that, I'm just going to create a new file inside the controllers folder, which is going to be UserController.ts. So for users, we're just going to have two things, which is like registration and also login. So we don't need logout actually. Yeah, so the since I've just configured to like expire within 1 hour, right? So even if we change it to like a 1 day or few days, we don't need to have the login method here. So if you are using like a front end with this, you can just remove the token from the front end side and the login. So sorry, the logout will be successful. Yeah, so for our registration, we will export const register user, and we have to create a async arrow function which is going to return nothing but a promise of void. So we are going to take two things here, which is going to be the request and the response. So request will be of type request. So this request should be from express, and response will be of type response, which is also from express. Make sure it's imported correctly. So we are going to use try catch here. So if there is any error, we are going to say with the status code of 500. So it will be like an internal server error, and we'll just pass in the error with the object with. So error will be of error dot message. So yeah, we'll just say it like a type of any, and we will also console log it here as well. So error dot message. So I'm just gonna copy this and paste it for our login as well. Since this all these things will be same, like the default plate, I'm just going to use this instead of login user. So for our register user, you can just use const We can get the username, email, and the password from the request.body. So we need to do few things. One is check if user already exists. So if the user already exists, we don't have to create a new one, right? Yeah. And then if there is no user, you have to ask the password before saving it to the database. We can just save the actual password to the database, right? And then we will create the new user. So to check the user, we'll just use like const existing user will be await, and we have to import that user from our model. So make sure it's imported from the model, and dot find one. We will just pass in the email. So since this email and the email field have the same name, we can just pass in like this. So if we have like a different name, you can just pass in with email colon email. It will also work. So if existing user, if existing user, we can just response. We can just give the status code of 400.json, and we can just give the message user already exists. Now let's hash our password. So const hash the password will be equal to await. We are going to use bcrypt. I don't think bcrypt will automatically import. Yeah, that hash, and we have to enter our password with the sort of 10. Yeah, let's just import bcrypt here. Import bcrypt from bcrypt.js. Yeah, now that our password has been hashed, let's create our new user. So const new user will be of type iUser, which will be imported from that model as well. I think we have to modify that model. So in the event, I think the interface is named with iUser also here. We have to change it to iEvent, and then we have to change it here as well. I don't know why I forgot it. Okay, now I think it will work. And equal to new user, and we just have to pass in the JSON object of username, email, and password. For that password, we are not actually forwarding the actual password, right? We have to add in the hashed password here. So yeah, so the username and the email has the same variable name here as well, along with the data. So we can just pass them plainly. It will just map it. So password, we have it in a different variable name that we want to save. So we are just given it like that, and then we have to save it, right? So await new user, which is the object dot save. So it will just create the object in the database. Now we just need to return this response. So response status. So status of 201, since we are not going to pass in any data. So .json with the message, we are just going to give user registered successfully. Yeah, so that's it for our register user. Now we are just going to give one for login user as well. In login user, we'll be getting two things. One is the email and the password from the request.body. Here we have to check few things. So check if the user exists. So only then we can just log in the user, right? Yeah. And then we need to compare the passwords so that passwords. Okay. And then if the password is correct and everything, we need to generate JWT, which is the particular token, and we need to send that to the user. Yeah. So let's check if the user has been found, which is going to be the same code that we use here. So I'm just going to copy this and rename it. Yeah. Yeah, I'm just going to change it as user, copy this user and paste it here. So here we have to make sure that if the user does not exist, we have to tell them the user has been not found. So for that we have to use 404 status code, and in the text you can say user not found. So we are passing in that email, and if the user is not found, we're just going to send a status of 404. Yeah. So if we get past this, it means the user exists and we need to match it. So const is match. So it is going to be like a true or false value. It is going to compare it. So we can use bcrypt for that as well. Bcrypt dot compare. We are comparing our password with the user dot password. So bcrypt will tell us if the password is correct or not. I don't know why is the user's error. User is possibly null, which is not possible. Yeah, we just need to make sure if the user is not there, we are pressing this return. Yeah, here also let's use this return here as well. So now the is match will work perfect, and if it is not found, like if it is not matched, we have to say that the password is incorrect or invalid credentials or something like that. So status of 400 with the JSON. So the message is going to be invalid credentials, and then let's just return here as well. So if everything works properly, we need to create the token. So token is equal to jwt.sign, which is going to be that id, user.id. Then we are going to use the process.env.jwt underscore secret, and we can just pass in the expires in, and you can put like 1 day, or I'm just going to use one, or if you use 1 day, or you can go with 1 month. Yeah, you can just do whatever you want. Yeah, I don't think the jwt is imported. Yeah, let's just import it. Import jwt from, make sure you're spelling from correctly, json web token. So again, this can be not exist, right? So that's the thing that the TypeScript gives us. So we just need to make sure before we are generating the token that if it doesn't exist, so this is going to be going to the user, right? So we have to just throw an error, or we can just give it that response with 500 error here. So response of status of 500 with the JSON. You can't just say token doesn't exist here, since a normal user can also see this. So yeah, I'm just going to say like authentication error, contact administrator. Yeah. So if you want, you can just say it like this is not existing or anything. We can just add in the return, and the error will be gone now. Yeah. So once our token has been created successfully, we can send it to the user so that they can use it to do the other actions, which is just going to be rest.status of 200, since we are sending it with the body. So this JSON is going to be just the token. Yeah, so that's it for our user controller. So we have two things here. One is to register and the next one is to login. Yeah, that is all we need for this. Now let's move on to our events controller as well. So for events controller, I'm just going to copy one of this controller and we can just paste it there. So I'm just going to copy this login and here. So that is the model, right? So let's create a new file. inside the controllers folder, which is going to be EventController.ts, and I've just pasted this logins users thing, and I'm just going to remove everything within the try block. Yeah, so we need to install few import few things, which is the request from the express and also the response. I don't think we have to import anything else, which is going to be get all events. We need to write the code here. This is like a boilerplate thing, right? So we can just create for everything, so we don't have to type these default things again and again. So this is going to be creating the event, right? So create event, and let me just paste it one above, which is going to be get a particular event. So get event. Okay, I'm just going to paste it again for update event. One more time for delete event. Yeah, so we have a delete event, update, create, get a single event, and get all the event. Just going to give a public access to get all events and the get event. So we don't have to log in to access those things. What we have to do is to log in to just create, update, and delete. So for get and get all, we don't need to have the authentication side. So it's going to be easy to complete. So let's just write that particular code here. So for get all, we are just going to get the events. So events will be which will be of type iEvent from our models event, and it will be an array of events, right? Yeah, so we're just going to put an await event dot find, and we're just not going to give any filters, so it will just get all the things for us. And we can just go with rest dot status of 200, and then we can just give in the JSON of the particular events, so which will just give us the events. Is there any error here? So find property does not exist. So make sure the event is imported. So that is why it's showing that error. So that's it for get all events. So for our get event, first we need to get that ID, right? So in the route itself, we will get that ID. We are not going to get the ID in a body or something like that. We just get the ID from that particular route itself. So it will be like API slash event slash like particular ID with the get request. So we need to get that ID. So const event ID. So event ID is going to be request dot params dot ID. Yeah, so we will define all the routing things inside the routes folder after we complete this controller. So now let's get our event, const event, which is going to be of type iEvent, and it can also be null, right? So if event doesn't exist, it also can be null. So we're just going to put the null here. So await, not wait, just await event dot find by ID, which is going to be using that event ID. Okay, now let's write like if event is not there, we need to give the response as 404, not 40, 4404, JSON of message event not found, and we need to return it. Okay, if it is found, we can just return it with response dot status of 200. Then we can just pass in the JSON with our event. So now let's create the create event code. Here we need to get that particular user ID so that we can assign it with the event. So which is going to be like request as any, and then we will get that user.id. So if we are not getting that ID, we will just get it with a catch, and we will throw it with a message. So it doesn't certainly going to be like an 400 error, sorry, 500 error. So let's just change it to 400 error here. Yeah, we don't have to think too much. So if the user ID is not found, it will just throw an error telling that actually we will have a middleware in between, right? So that we will know that for sure that the user ID will be existing there. So yeah, we can just leave it as 500 here. I don't know why I changed it as 400 right now. So now we have to create our event. So const event is going to be of type iEvent, which is going to be a new event of object in which we can just pause in all the body from the request. I hope that they are just sending that particular arguments alone, not with an extra objects, which will throw an error like the validation error. So we don't have to worry about it. So created by user ID. Yeah, now we just need to save it, which is going to be, we can just go with save, but we need to, yeah, we will also return that thing. Okay, so I'm just gonna go with const saved event. So we will just save it and we will just get back that event and we will pass it to the user. So I event, which is going to be an await event dot save. Yeah, and response dot status of 200, and then we can just return that saved event here. So our create event controller has been ready. Let's go with the update one. So in update, it's going to be like the same thing as before. So I'm just going to copy till this event from the user ID as well. Yeah. So before we update, we need to check if the event exists, right? So this event can also possibly be null. Actually, I'm really sorry. I don't know why I just copied this. This is creating a new event, right? We need to find out if the event exists. So event dot find by ID. So for delete only, we have to copy from the update one. Okay. So request dot params dot ID. So we will get that ID from the API route, and then we already have the user ID. If the event doesn't exist, I'm just gonna create a response of status of 404 stating that the event is not found with the message event not found. Since we are going to update it, we don't want other users to update our particular event, right? So we have to make sure that the user ID who has been logged in and the ID from the created event are same. So let's just check that. So we are going to check event dot created by dot toString. So I don't know why the question mark has been appeared since it is going to be there, right? Okay, so we have to return here. So that is why it thought that it can also be an optional thing. So if we know that it's going to be a null, we can just use that particular question mark, but it's not going to be a null for us, so we don't need to use that. We have to make sure it is not equal to user ID, meaning that it should be equal to. So if it is not equal to, we will just return it and they should not be able to update it, right? So before return, I'm just going to give a status code of 403, which is like unauthorized. So they don't have the permission to do that particular action. So 403 JSON of message. We are just going to say you do not have permission to update this event. So now we have checked all our constraints. The last thing is to update that particular event, which is going to be const updated event await. So event from the model find by ID and update. Yeah. So make sure that the A is capital here. So we're just going to pass in that request.params.id, or you can just use the event.id as well. And then we need to pass in the body, which is going to be the new updated event. And then we are just going to tell it as a new thing. So it will just say it's a new thing. Yeah. So we just need to return this now. So status of 200 dot JSON of message. We don't need the message, just pass in the updated event. Yeah. So our updated event has been done. So for our delete event, I'm just gonna copy. So in order to delete event, the event should be there, right? So we can just copy these things. Yeah, this also should be the same, right? We can also copy this. I'm just going to copy the whole thing. We just need to change one thing here. Yeah, so we got a user ID. We are getting the event. We are checking if the event exists or not. We are making sure that a particular user has access to that event to do the CRUD operations. And instead of updated event, we don't need to use this updated event variable here. So instead of find by ID and update, we are going to use find by ID and delete. Yeah. So we don't need to pass in that body and all. We just need to pass in the ID, and instead of the updated event, we're just going to pass in a message telling that the event has been deleted. So event deleted. Yeah, I think we are done with our controller. So we can just get all the events, particular events, create a new event, update, delete. Yeah, this update and delete can done only with the authenticated users of that particular user. So we have to authenticate to create a event, and to update and delete we have to authenticate with the same user who has created the event. So the other users can't do those operations to modify other person's events, right? So that's how it should be. So next we can define the route so that we can access our controllers. Okay, now I'm just going to close all these files, and then let's go and create our routes inside the route folder. I'm just going to create a new name for users.ts. So in this, we are going to create a router. So const router is equal to a capital router from Express. Make sure it's imported properly. And then with this, we can just define our things. So router.post. So in post request, we just need to that register path. So if we come like those API slash user and all, we will just define it within the server.ts. So this files the already the incoming route will be API slash user. So in that we can just go with slash register, which is going to be register user from that controller. Yeah. So I'm just gonna copy the same thing and for login as well. So login, for that login user, make sure it's imported, and then we just need to export it. Export default router. Yeah, so the route for our users has been created. So we're just going to do the same thing for our event as well. Events.ts. So make sure we are just following a common thing. So I'm just going to use a small here. Just going to create a const router is equal to router with a capital R. Import it from Express. And here also it will be like API slash here we add the user, right? Instead of user, we can just go with users, and here it's going to be event. So in this event, we're just going to go with router.get, and this get is going to get all the events. So get all events, make sure it's imported. Yeah, and let me just write that export in our itself. Export default router. Yeah, now we have to write in another get, which is not just going to be like getting that single thing. We have to get this ID. So make sure you are using this particular ID because we are just used it in the controller. So if we go inside, we can just find see that the request that params that ID, right? So we have ID here, so we have to use that same ID here. So if you are changing the name here with like a name or someone a field, we have to make sure you are using that particular name here also. So when we get that ID, we need to make sure we are passing get event alone. Yeah. So same goes for a post, which is going to be like the create one. So yeah, if they give a post request, it is going to be create event. If they give like a put request, which is going to be like an update request. So for that also they will be forwarding with the ID, right? Yeah, right now we have just built the routes. So it is not an authenticated route, which we will do in a minute. So, oh, update event. Yeah, now there is no error. The same goes for router.delete, colon id. This is going to be delete event. Yeah, let me just import that also. Yeah, so yeah, as I said before, this is all public route. So we don't have to have this user things. We can just access the events and it will just work. So in order to make sure that these things are authenticated, we have to create a middleware, which we will just do it in a minute. So before that, let's add these routes to our server.ts. So inside the server.ts, in our routes, you can just add like app.use, and then we can say slash API slash events is going to be event routes. I'm just going to copy this and user routes. We have to import it, so make sure you're using events here. Sorry, users here. Events route and user route. So import event routes from. I'm just going to write dot slash routes slash events. E should be small. Yeah, I don't know why it's showing an error. It says that since I have created that first file name as with the capital E, I think that's here. If I just close the files and then open it again, just gonna go with the small E, it will work. And I'm just gonna copy the same thing and user routes, which is going to be from users. Yeah, so let's just try and run the server npm run dev. As I thought, we are not going to use this passport and passport JWT. I just tried it before, I think. So you don't have to actually install this. You can just remove these two things, and you can also remove these two things as well from the dev dependencies. Yeah, we can see that the server is running perfectly fine. So I think it's just something with this TypeScript configuration. Yeah, maybe if I just close this VS Code and open it again, that error won't pop up. So yeah, so for you it won't be an error. So I'm just gonna close these things and let's try and work this. So as I told before, I'm just going to use Postman here. So for Postman, so I'm just going to create a new collection and work from there. So the new collection, let's name it as Events API. So inside this itself, we can add in our authentication token so that you don't have to add it within a single request itself. So for that, let's create our new request. Right now, we don't have any authenticated route. So let's just go with API 5000 events. So this will get all the events for us. So I'm just going to click on send. And as we can see, right now we don't have any events there. So the 200 request means everything works fine. So it has gone to the database, fetched the data, and it has returned it to us. Yeah, I think it works now. So yeah, we can also try to create it as well. So as I said before, create will produce an error since in right now it doesn't have that user ID, right? Since we haven't created one. So first we have to create that user. For that we have to add in that middleware. So let me just save this for now. It is going to be get all events, and inside this events API, then click on save. As we can see, this is the login that I was talking about with the Morgan. So we have accessed the get API events. So it has said that it has taken like 200 status code, which has a body length of 2, which is like, it's just an empty array, right? So it's just given to, I think it's in bytes, and how many time it has taken to complete this quest. Yeah, I think I can just close this terminal. So I haven't terminated it, like it's running in the backend. I'm just minimizing it. Now we have to create our middleware so that we can make sure that certain requests are authenticated. So for that, inside the middleware folder, let's create our auth.ts. So in this, we are just going to have like a controller function that we have created earlier, but it will be running in between the requests. So before reaching that controller, we will run this. So for that, we need to treat the request response and also the next. So it will just go to the next thing. Let's just start coding export const authenticate. I think we should name it like check authenticate or anything. So I'm just gonna leave with this. So we are going to get the request, which will be of type request. Make sure it's imported from Express, and next is going to be response. Make sure it's also from Express. Next, and this will be next function from Express, which is going to be a void thing, which is not going to return anything. Yeah, here we need to get in our token. So this token will be inside the authorization header. So request dot headers dot authorization, which can be optional since it won't be there, right? Split, and we have to split it because for example, if this is our token, we will receive it as bearer or something like this with a space, and then we will get our token. So we are just splitting with this, and we're just getting this part alone. So for that, we are going to call the index of one so that we will get the second thing. So we will just have our token. Yeah, so if the token doesn't exist, here is where we're just going to say, hey, you have to have the token, so you are not authorized to do anything. So 401 JSON, I just pass in a message telling access denied, no token provided, and then we will just return it. If the user has provided a token, we'll go with the try catch block, and then in the error, we'll just say request of status of 400, status 400, and then we can just go with the JSON message. And we can just say invalid token. So if they have provided something and it doesn't work with us, we'll just say it's invalid. So const decoded is equal to jwt dot verify. So we have to import jwt. We'll just do it in a minute. So token, and then we need to get our process dot env dot jwt underscore secret. Yeah. So which is going to also throw an error since it might be null, right? So we have to write a if condition for that as well. So for that, we have already have an if condition written inside this user controller, right? So login here, yeah. So I'm just gonna copy this and write here. So yeah, it should be above this. Yeah. If the JW secret is not provided, we're just going to say authentication error, contact the administrator, and we have to import the JWT. So import JWT from JSON web token. Yeah, now we have verified the JWT. We need to assign it to the user. So as you can see here inside this event, we are getting that user ID with user.id, right? For that, we have to assign it to assign it within that request. So we are just going to use that. So request as any here dot user will be equal to decoder. So within this, the user ID will be there. From that only we are accessing it. As we can see, the decode has been success. It has been verified. So if it is not verified and if it throws an error, it will just catch it and it will just say invalid token. So we have our the correct things are working. So we just need to pass into the next function right after this. So I'm just going to call in the next. So what it does is that it will just do the next thing that we are provided, which is going to be the controller. So we have to add this to our routes. So in user routes, we don't have to have it. So for registration, they don't have to log in already, right? They can't do that. So for login also, they don't have to already log in. So which is the purpose of that? So here we don't need to add this authenticate. In the events alone, we need to add this. here you can just pass in other things as well. So I'm just going to copy this. Make sure you're importing it from middleware auth, then you just come out. So like this you can just pass in like multiple functions. So this makes sure that when we reach this, first this will be run, next this will be run. So if the user is not provided any a token here, it will just stop here itself, so they won't be able to create that particular event without logging in. Yeah, same goes for update and also delete as well. Authenticate. So if you want, you can also add this authenticate here also, so that user can see all the events. But if they have to say that particular event details, they have to log in like that. If you want, you can do that, or you can also make sure that all the events should be authenticate. So if you are going to use authenticate for all these events, you can just add it inside the server itself. So here itself, you can just go with authenticate, and then you can just add the event routes, so that all the routes will be authenticated for that event area alone. Yeah, I don't think it will show any error. So no overload cost. So the error was called because I have imported it from the passport. Make sure you're importing the authenticate from the middleware, not the passport package. So now the error is gone. So yeah, now the entire events route is need to be authenticated to access it. You can also do that here itself. Now that our server is completely ready, it has been restarted as well. Let's go and access our API and see how it looks. Get all, I think there won't be any problem for get all, and yeah, it will be same as before since we don't need access denied. So get all is access denied. You can just click on this two pane view to have it side by side as well. I think, yeah, I have removed here as well. So let me just save it again so the server should restart, and then I think it will just work. Yeah, the server has been restarted. So let me just keep it open so that we can just see the logs here. So I'm just using get with this without the ID, so it will just get all the things and it shouldn't say access denied. Okay, so we can say that we are getting that particular empty bracket since we don't have any. Let's create a new API request to create the folder. Sorry, create a new user. So, so we need to go to post and yeah, a slash API slash user login. So instead of login, we have to register first. Yeah. So to register, we have to pass in our details, right? So we have to go to body, and if we move this slightly, if we select raw and then move it slightly, I don't know why I can't just move it. So there should be like a JSON here. So if I go with a single pane view instead of text, we have to choose JSON. Yeah, and then I can just go with this. Yeah, here we can just provide our username, which can be like, yeah, I'm just gonna write my name, and then email, and then you can just pass in a email here like a@gmail.com, and then you can just enter the password. But before that, I'm just going to see if it throws an error if the password doesn't exist. Let me just save it within this events API. So this is going to be register user. Make sure you're pressing save. Yeah, if I click on send, we can see illegal arguments, undefined number. Yeah, it just throws an error. So if I enter our password, so I haven't added like a minimum string should be 8 or something like that. We can do that if we need. I haven't added it. So I'm just going to keep a as well. So yeah, if I click on send, you can see that the user has been created. If I try to create the same user again, it will say that the user is already exist. So I'm just gonna copy this body, and then let's log in now. Yeah, login. So for that, I'm just going to create a new request, which is going to be a post as well. And then we are going to log in. Let's go to params, single pane. Yeah, let's just choose raw, JSON. I'm just gonna paste it here. I'm just going to change it to 2pane, and we don't need the username here. Yeah, if I click on send now, as we can see, we got our token. So let me just save it. So this is going to be login user within this events API. Save. Yeah. So make sure you're copying this token. So with this only we will be accessing the authenticating ourselves. So let's do one of the authentication needed things, which is to create our event, right? So click on new event, and we have to post an event. So if you're giving a post request, it means you are creating it, right? I'm just gonna go to the body raw and then gonna select JSON. Yeah, here we need few things, which is going to be the name of the event. I'm just going to go with like event A, and then location, which is going to be location A. Yeah, date, which is going to be like, yeah. So for our date, I'm just gonna do some random dates, which is going to be in the format of 2025, and let's go with March 15, and we have to mention the time here as well, which is t of 10. So if you want to have it in a separate format, you can just select that string option and you can just have it in your own format also, or we can just change it like this. So 00, and which is going to be 003. So this is like the format for the date object in Mongoose. Yeah, we just need to give these three things. It will just work. And while updating, we can just add our authentication and everything. So created by will be taken by default itself. So let me just save it for now. Just going to be like a create event. We haven't added authentication token yet. So we'll just check if it works. Like if the token is not there, will it throw any error or not? So if I click on send, it says access denied, no token has been provided. So there are two ways to provide this provide this token. So one is that if we click on this body and within this authorization, in this type, you can just select this bearer token, and then you can just paste the token here itself so that this request will be authenticated. We don't have to do this like this since we are just going to use all the requests with the same token, right? So we can just add it with so in Postman, we can just add, we will be able to add that. So if I just open this event API collection, here I can just go with authorization, select bearer token, and I can just paste the token here itself, and I can just save it. So now all the routes will be passed with that particular token also, so that the update and delete also I don't have to go and manually add it again and again. So I can just change it in one area and it will just work. So if I click on send now, it says access denied. Yeah, okay. Since like I have added this token here itself, right? So I think it has been overriding that part. I think that's why. Yeah, I don't know why I can't see the top thing. Yeah, I've just selected it to no auth so that that auth from our event API collection will be taken. So that's why it has been throwing that error. So let me just open this as well. So now, yeah, I don't think they like that one to work. I think I have to run it inside that. So in order to run this, I think I just have to add authorization here. So I'm just going to set bearer token and paste the token here itself. Okay, and then we can just go back to our body and we can just click send. As we can see, the user's ID has been added and everything has been added. So yeah, it's working fine here. And let's try to update it. So in order to update it, I don't know why that created by has not been added with this. So inside the events controller, create. Yeah, we have added this create, right? We're passing the request body created by, where is this model, the event created by, yeah, which is not added this created by for us. And let me just try and get all the elements. Yeah, we can see that all the elements we have just got it, but that created by has not been added here. Yeah, I don't know why it's not. So let me just console log it here. So console log that particular event. So now we will know when we send a create request, will it console log. Once it console log, we can just see that the created by is added or not. If I send that request again, yeah, we can see that it has been created. But in the name, date, location, attendee, we can also see that ID as well, but created by is not there. So if I go to the model object type.id, so yeah, we are referring it to the user required is true. So without this, it should not create it, right? Okay, say. So I think I just made a big blunder here. So I have just added this created by within the authentities. So yeah, it will not work like that. Yeah, so make sure you're pasting this created by after the attendees, not inside the attendees. I've just created the schema like that. That's why it's throwing that error. So since the attendees can also be like a default array, right? So that created by is okay. So that was the error that I have made here. So other than that, everything will work fine. So yeah. So now before creating the events, let's just delete all these events. So we can also see if the delete thing works as well. Since so yeah, I don't know. I don't think the delete will also work actually, since we need that particular ID to delete it, right? Like that user I like created by, like if we go to the event controller, if I go to update or delete, we can see that the created by should be there. So which will just throw like you don't have a particular permission to do it. So if I go to like create a new request, and if I go to delete events slash, let me just get the ID of a particular event which we have just created now. Even if I get that particular authorization token also, let me just add it as well. Authorization bearer token. Yeah, so now I'm authenticated as well, but it will throw an error saying that it's not there. Yeah, we can see that cannot read the properties of undefined toasting. So that particular created by is not there. Yeah, by the way, let me just save it. Delete event means API. Yeah, so by code right now we can't delete it actually. We can delete it if we just comment this part out. Yeah. So for now, this is a big mistake on my side that I have defined the schema wrongly. So that let me just comment this code for now and restart the server, and let me just delete those things, and then we can just continue with this. Yeah. So I'm just going to remove all these things. So in getAll, I'm just going to get everything again. So we can see there are two things which should not be there for us now. So I'm just going to give this, and you can see the event has been deleted. Since right now I'm not checking if I'm the user or anything like that, since we don't have that data yet. I'm just deleting it. You can see that the delete is working fine. We just have to make sure that the user only can delete it like that. Yeah, I'm just gonna uncomment it, and the server should restart now. I think the code said there won't be any change, so I'm just gonna use the npm start. Now the server has been started, and I'm just gonna try and get all now. We are just beginning as empty now. So now I'm just going to try with the same data to create a new event. Yeah, you can see that created by now as well. So I think that console log is also come here. So inside that events in create, I think I haven't removed this console. So the server will not be restarted since we are like in the production side. Let me just also create another thing with event B, which is going to happen at 16th. Yeah, so that if I go to get all, we can see there are two things. So I'm just going to grab the event piece ID and let's create a new request to get a particular event. So I'm just going to paste that ID here. If I click on send, you can see that particular ID is object alone. So let me just save this as well. Get event inside the events API. So save will be down here. Yeah. Now let's try and update it. This is going to be put, and in this we'll just need to pass in the ID. So yeah, in the event A, I'm just gonna copy the ID, and yeah, I'm just gonna do something like, yeah, in the authentic. Okay, we need to get the authentication token as well here. Create authorization. Maybe just copy this token as well and paste it in bearer token. Inside the body, just gonna click raw and then make sure you're selecting this JSON. I'm just gonna copy these things from here. Yeah, for us it's like event A, right? We are modifying event A now. So I'm just gonna keep the locations and the event name and all same. So yeah, I'm just going to add the attendees alone. So attendees is going to be an array of this A user is going to be authenticated. So they don't have to be a user in the database to add here. We can just add multiple emails here like ab@gmail.com, and if we send it now, we can see that it has been working. It's working because I am the user. You have created this event, so it's working now. So we can see that every part is working fine. Let me just save it. Update event, save. Yeah. So everything is working now. So we are just going to try one use case, which is I'm just going to create a new user and I'm just going to log in with that, and I'm just going to try and update and delete with that particular user. So we'll see if we are able to do that. So we shouldn't be able to do that by the way we have coded. So we'll see that. So if we go to register user inside the body, I'm just going to create a new user with B. Let the password be 8 so for this also. Yeah, I'm just going to click send. Yeah, we have been registered successfully. So I'm just going to go to login user. I don't know why it's always like this. I'm just going to be at gmail.com. We are going to get a new token for our B user. So if the B user has been logged in, they shouldn't be able to update this, right? So in the body, I'm just going to add one other thing like c at gmail.com. So this is like the updated list that B tries to update. So let's just change the authorization. I think now it took the token from here. So if I change the token here and save it, and if I try to send this now, so we can see that you do not have the permission. So I think this is not working like we are expecting to do. So if we are just running all the things together, I think this authentication will work. So I think that's the problem here. I'm just gonna go with no auth, and yeah. As you can see, you don't have any permission to update this event. And if I don't have any token, and if I go with like no auth here, and if I send, it says unauthorized. So before I add the token inside this event API, that's why it works. So if I go to bearer token and paste it now, it says you don't have permissions to do that, which is the required thing to do. So it will be same for the delete as well. So I think we have done with this. So I'll just add the report to the GitHub and I will leave the link in the description below. You can just access it if you want. Yeah, so if there is anything you want to talk, we can just put it in the comments down below. So if you like this, give this video a like and subscribe for more.